In the early 16th century, one of the greatest empires the world has ever known fell with shocking speed. The Inca Empire, which stretched along the spine of the Andes and ruled over millions of people, was conquered and dismantled in only a few years by a small group of Spanish conquistadors, led by Francisco Pizarro. The story of how it happened is one of betrayal, violence, and the devastating collision between two vastly different worlds and civilizations. Francisco Pizarro and his men arrived at the Inca Empire in late 1531 with a force of approximately 180 soldiers, 68 of which were on horseback. He also brought 3 cannons, and his soldiers were fully equipped with steel weapons, armor, and the advantage of horses, which were new and terrifying to the Incas. In fact, the Incas initially believed the conquistadors were gods, as they had never seen men clad in steel armor, wielding metal weapons or riding horses. Their own experience with animals was limited to using llamas and alpacas as pack animals. When Francisco Pizarro and the Spanish arrived, the Inca Empire was already in a state of instability and disorder to varying degrees. Following the death of Emperor Huayna Capac around 1527, a brutal civil war erupted between his sons, Atahualpa and Huáscar. The two half-brothers fought bitterly for control of the empire. Although Atahualpa ultimately emerged victorious, the war left the empire politically fragmented and militarily weakened. The timing could not have been worse. When Francisco Pizarro and his men arrived on the coast of modern-day Peru, they encountered an empire that was still reeling from internal conflict and a new ruler who was struggling to consolidate power. Little did he know about the impending doom that was about to land on his shores. Pizarro had previously visited the South American coast and had heard rumors of a wealthy empire in the highlands. Inspired by the successes of Hernán Cortés in Mexico, he petitioned the Spanish crown for permission to conquer the land he had heard so much about. He received limited support, but was granted the right to claim the territory in the name of Spain. With fewer than 200 men, some horses, and a handful of firearms, he embarked on a campaign that would ultimately topple an empire of millions. Perhaps one of the most pivotal events in the conquest of the Inca civilization was the meeting between Pizarro and Atahualpa in 1532 at the town of Cajamarca. Atahualpa, confident in the strength of his armies and the superiority of his divine right to rule, saw little threat in the small band of foreigners who requested an audience. He arrived with several thousand attendants, unarmed and relaxed, expecting a diplomatic exchange. What followed was a brutal ambush. Under the pretense of parley, Pizarro and his men launched a surprise attack. Cannons thundered, guns fired, and steel cut through Inca ranks. Caught off guard, the Incas were slaughtered by the hundreds, and Atahualpa was captured alive, giving the Spanish a significant advantage. Atahualpa, recognizing the greed of the Spaniards, offered a ransom of unimaginable wealth. He filled a room with gold and another 2 with silver in exchange for his release. Over the next several months, treasures from across the empire were collected and melted down, erasing from history countless Inca artifacts and artworks that today would be priceless. The Spaniards accepted the ransom, but instead of releasing Atahualpa, they charged him with a range of fabricated crimes and executed him by strangulation in 1533. With the Inca ruler dead and their gold plundered, the Spanish turned their attention to consolidating control. They installed a puppet emperor, Manco Inca Yupanqui, but real power rested with the Spaniards. Despite a series of rebellions and continued resistance, including a major uprising led by Manco Inca in 1536, the Spanish military superiority, combined with alliances they forged with rival indigenous groups, gradually eroded Inca control. Horses, steel weapons, and firearms gave the conquistadors a major tactical advantage in battle. Furthermore, European diseases like smallpox had already spread through the Andes before the Spaniards even reached the heart of the empire. These diseases decimated the population, killing not only commoners but also key leaders, soldiers, and healers, further weakening the Inca ability to resist. The conquest was not just a military campaign, but a cultural and spiritual one as well. The Spaniards imposed Christianity, destroyed Inca temples, and repurposed sacred sites as churches. They dismantled administrative systems, erased traditional practices, and reshaped the region's economy to serve colonial interests. The encomienda system enslaved much of the local population under the guise of tribute and labor in the name of the Spanish crown. Over time, entire generations grew up under colonial rule, and the memory of Inca sovereignty faded into legend. Yet, despite the rapid and ruthless conquest, Inca resistance did not vanish overnight. The last Inca stronghold, Vilcabamba, remained independent until 1572, when the Spanish captured and executed the final Inca ruler, Tupac Amaru. His death marked the formal end of the Inca state, but the spirit of resistance would echo through the Andes for centuries, eventually inspiring future revolts and indigenous movements. The fall of the Inca Empire to a small band of conquistadors is often cited as a tale of European superiority, but the truth is far more complex. It was not simply superior weapons or tactics that brought down the empire. It was timing, political chaos, betrayal, and the unanticipated devastation of disease that created the perfect storm. The Spaniards exploited divisions, struck with precision, and applied psychological warfare as effectively as they used swords and guns. In the end, the Inca Empire, once one of the most sophisticated and powerful in the Americas, fell not in a climactic final battle, but in a series of calculated moves that took advantage of every crack in its foundations. I'd like to thank you for investigating the fall of the Inca Empire with us, and I invite you back for our next episode of The Rise of Humans.